Welcome back. This is Podcast 129, live from the Peach State. I am Hunter Waldrop, and that is Jake Stinchcomb. Jake, how are we doing today, brother?
Good, man. Long day at class after a crazy weekend of football.
Ain't that the truth?
Happened. I feel like it's the weeks that we never expect a lot to happen. A lot happens. So I'm excited to dive into this one.
Yeah, man. And before we get deep into it, I do want to apologize to anybody who was looking forward to some episodes last week. We both had some rather busy schedules, and then Tyler, he started his season, so we didn't get a lot out last week. We did get one out on Saturday morning, but I think we have starting to find a little bit better of a groove. We won't be as busy as we were last week, but this is episode 8. And we are going to recap the week 2 college football slate. And like you said, dude, I mean, crazy that when you don't expect anything big to happen, something big always happens. And that is the art of this sport. So, Jake, won't you tell them about what you've been doing this week?
Okay, so we finally got the TikTok up. Go follow us. I know our Instagram and Twitter handles are at podcast_129 on Twitter. Hunter just marked it out there. But it's at podcast.129. We posted a few videos. Once we get some more videos out and some more worthy film from me and Hunter, we'll definitely get the TikToks rolling. Appreciate you going and following, commenting, liking. Go repost it. And as always, go follow us on Twitter, X, and Instagram. Shout us out. And you can always watch us on YouTube. So.
Absolutely. Jake has been hard at work trying to get that TikTok set up, and he has finally done it. And
yeah, and anybody listening that or watching that post on TikTok, like actively, you are a TikTok poster. I applaud you, man. That app is like it is insane. So I promise I'm putting in the work, and I'm going to get there where it's a little bit easier. But that app is very tough to navigate when it comes to post videos. I couldn't just be dumb, but I think I have 3 videos out, and they manhandled me for sure. So.
Hey, that's part of it. Everybody's got to learn new stuff. So, but all right, Jake, you know what time it is.
1st and 10. So this weekend, it was the first home game in Athens. Vibes were high. Me and my friends went to Creature Comfort Saturday morning. We watched the Brooks Austin show, Film Guy Network. That was awesome. Got to see them live, hopped around a few bars, went to the game. We knew what was happening, but it was game day in Athens. It was Saturday in Athens. So good weekend. And first Saturday in Athens that there was alcohol in the stadium. And let me tell you, if you weren't there Saturday and you're preparing to go to a game this year, get there early, get your beers while you can, because the lines are insane. I really like the way they were set up. They had each section or each stand had a different beer, a different drink. They had high noon.
All right.
In Sanford, man. I mean, it was they had Miller courts, anything you can ask for, but the lines are freaking insane. So in honor of the Dogs rolling again, I know it was Tennessee Tech, got a big one this weekend. I'll be boots on the ground in Lexington. I know this game isn't looked at as high because they got smoked by South Carolina. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But the question for 1st and 10 this week, Hunter, can you name every quarterback who has started in a football game during the Kirby Smart era? There are
how many?
6.
All right, so you got Grayson Lambert.
No.
Yes, he did. He started against North Carolina, and yes, he 100% did. And then Jacob Eason came in. It was Kirby Smart's first ever game in the Georgia Dome. It's a Chick-fil-A classic.
Kirby positive because according to Georgia Bulldogs on Sports Illustrated, he did not.
Okay, well, I was at that game. I'll never forget, because when Jacob Eason came in, that place erupted.
This is literally Georgia Bulldogs on us. You got it right. Let's keep going. Let's go through the other 6. I think the rest of these 6 are pretty legit.
All right, so we got Eason was next.
Yep.
So you got Eason, then you got Fromm.
Yep.
Fromm played for 3 years, and you got DeJuan Mathis, never forget. You got JT Daniels. You got Stetson Bennett. You got Carson Beck.
Who is the one before Stetson, you said? Sorry.
JT Daniels.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure. Yeah, that's right. That was pretty easy.
We're going to have to go fact check. Dude,
Yep, I'm fact checking it right now. What game was it?
It was 2016, Kirby Smart
Yep.
first season, game 1. They played Mitch Trubisky and the North Carolina Tar Heels in the Chick-fil-A Classic. It was like the last year of the Georgia Dome. I was in like 8th grade. I remember like busting tail to get from my rec game to that one.
So this says Georgia won the game 33-24. Jacob Eason was the leading passer, 8 for 12, 131 yards. Grayson Lambert, 5 for 8, 54. See if I can get a little player, a little, what's it called? The game log here. Give me 1 second. Gosh, Chubb had 32 carries, 222 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Those were the days, man. Oh, my gosh. 32 carries. Oh, play-by-play. Here we go. First and 10. Chubb run for 6 yards. Chubb run for 16. Grayson Lambert sacked by Malik Carney for a loss of 2 yards. So, Hunter, good job, man.
I outdid Bulldog Illustrated. Just want to throw
And
that.
what's crazy is this article, let me go back to this, was published actually very recently. I just saw it today. July 4th, 2024 by Christian Kirby. I have no
forgot
clue
about
this
the
guy
GOAT.
is.
The GOAT.
He forgot about the GOAT.
Pretty sure he has the best single game completion percentage in an SEC history. I think he was like 21 of 22 against Louisville in 2015.
Grayson Lambert.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Another Grayson Lambert fact. Gosh, I need to like
Legend.
life over here. Okay. Anyways, that'll
Good
do
first and 10.
10. Solid first and 10. But all right, it's time to hop into these week 2 games. First up, the Longhorns traveled into Ann Arbor, and Michigan scored a garbage time touchdown. Do not let this score fool you. Except the only bad thing about this score is that the over cashed by half a point on a garbage time touchdown, which is a bunch of BS for me and Jake over here. But Texas just destroyed them from start until finish, from the opening drive until the fourth quarter. And I know Texas didn't score anything in the fourth quarter, but at that point, it was chew clock mode. Let's get out with no injuries. We got this one in the bag. And for those, but Jake, before I let you get into it, for those watching on YouTube, and if you play the college football game, this is what it looked like for Quinn Ewers there. And for those who aren't watching, on YouTube or listening on podcast, is a picture of the Texas offense in the red zone, but there's no, they're going up against air. There's no defense, and it says the stadium pulse is at 1 because that's what it looked like every time Texas got in the red zone. There was no competition, none whatsoever. And yeah, so I was very impressed by Quinn Ewers. He is now the Heisman favorite after this week. On FanDuel Sportsbook, he is moved to plus 550, which I think is well deserved after 2 weeks of ball. I mean, you can make an argument for a few other guys like Cam Ward, but Quinn Ewers looking the part, man. I think the thing I was most impressed by was the way that Texas's offensive line was able to consistently pocket for him. Like Michigan just could not get home in the front 7, and the way that Ewers was able to just step up in the pocket and just deliver the ball perfectly with precision and accuracy, that was the most impressive part to me. And so I was impressed by that.
Yeah, that was one of the – it's crazy you say that. That's one of my biggest notes is Michigan in the first half, because let me tell everybody here, I did not watch any of the second half. I took off to Sanford right after the first half ended, and that was just awful. But the first half, which is where the game happened, really, that game was over at halftime. Michigan just could not get a pass rush, and like Hunter just said, their Texas offensive line, they did a great job protecting him. But I will say, especially in the first quarter, early on in the second, when it was still close, there were a lot of times where Michigan secondary did great. Nothing was open, and Quinn was just kind of sitting back, right? And then they'd kind of get close. Michigan would finally get close to him after 3 to 4 to 5 seconds. And that's where we saw Ewers I really liked seeing him get out of the pocket and make plays because nothing was open. He scrambled. His receivers would either come to him, get away from his corners, and that's when he made throws. So that was really good for him, for me at least, because I have not been a big Quinn guy. To see him, nothing's open. All right, I'm going to make a play with my legs, get outside the pocket. And I think it was on the first drive, or maybe
it was. So that's what I was.
It was a long 3rd and 11 or 3rd and 10.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was a Michigan. Yeah, I'll finish what I'm about to say. I was on Michigan by Saturday, against the spread at least, and I'm like, oh my gosh, 3rd down and 11. Michigan's defense, and Quinn sitting back. Nothing's there. It gets out of the pocket and makes a good throw. It was a long throw, probably 30, 40 yards down the field. So Quinn Ewers, just like what Hunter said early on just a minute ago, he is a legit Heisman candidate. He looked really good.
No, I was going to point out that same thing that you did. There was a 3rd and 11. They were on their backside, and then he goes up, and Isaiah Bond is going to be his security blanket. I mean, that guy is consistently making great catches, bailing them out, especially on the deep side of it. The tight end, Gunnar Helm, that guy, another security blanket for Quinn. 7 receptions, 98 yards, and a touchdown. There was one. So this ended up getting called back. It was technically the first touchdown of the game, but it got called back on a holding penalty. Quinn rolls out, directs traffic, and the receiver finds the perfect amount of space. And this ball could not have been placed any better. I'm not one to typically get up here and glaze Quinn Ewers, but he deserves it. I mean, directing traffic, like you said, on the run, it throws it across the field, and just, I don't know. I haven't seen him stand out like that consistently outside the pocket. Now, we've all seen him, beat guys with a deep ball when he's thrown to Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell the past 2 years. But this year, seeing him, take that next step, I mean, he's going to be, if he continues to play like this, he's going to be right there in the Heisman conversation and the first round conversation for next year's NFL draft. Shout out to the New York Giants. Y'all might be drafting Quinn Ewers next year, but yeah. So
that was good. I mean, Texas looks great. They do. And my biggest question with Texas coming into the season was, and I think I have them as either my wild card or disappointing. I know Hunter, I believe, has this as disappointing. But our biggest question, I think me and Hunter both, was the defense. Were they going to, and we had this game starred as their defense, were they going to be able to stop the run? And they did. I mean, it's hard to say they did, because my thing is more, I'm not saying Michigan is nowhere near as good of a team right now as Texas. Nowhere near. But as far as a Michigan execution, game plan, play calling, I guess, standpoint, if anybody tries to guess a number, how many times Michigan would throw the ball in this game before Saturday, I feel like everybody would be between 7, because 7's always that number that everybody throws out, how many times they throw the ball again, to like 20. I feel like that's a fair number. Everybody would guess 20 at the max. Davis Warren threw the ball 33 times in this football game, first of all. Second of all, Donovan Edwards had 8 carries, which is 5 yards a carry. That's not bad. He had 8 carries, 41 yards, 5 yards a carry. Why they didn't keep feeding him, even in the second half, because what was the going in the second half, I think it was 24-0. And at this point, is that right, Hunter? Something
24-3.
24-3. But still, you're down 21 points. But Sherrone Moore knows. He's got to know. You're not going to – Davis Warren, he sucks. He's terrible. He missed 3-yard out route throws. Why Donovan Edwards only got 8 carries, that just blows my mind. And even early on in the game, I think it was the first drive. They came out 1st and 10, threw it, and then maybe ran it and threw it again. Early on in the game, it was just too much throwing. I think this guy had to have thrown the ball 16, 17 times in the first.
Yeah, so I was actually watching this game, and I was going to get into the Michigan offense. I mean, it's abysmal. There's no other way to put it. They have no guys on the outside. Every time he steps back to throw, he just eyes down Colston Loveland, just praying to God.
Yeah, and Loveland had, what, 8 catches or something? Yeah.
8 catches, 70 yards. But I was essentially Michigan's offensive coordinator. I said, all right, guys, this is what's going to happen. He's going to hand it off to Donovan Edwards, and he's going to hand it off to Donovan Edwards again. They're not going to get he's going to throw an incomplete pass and they're going to punt. And then it's the same thing the next drive. Run, incomplete pass, Nick, punt. It was over and over and over again. And it's gotten to the point where it's now concerning.
Yeah. No, I definitely think Michigan, I mean, you can't say they're done because this isn't a Big Ten loss, but you don't have an offense. And if you're going to give Donovan Edwards your guy only 8 carries and this is the biggest game on your schedule to date, like as far as right now, that's inexcusable. That he had to have had like 20 carries in that game. I don't understand how he had 8. Maybe he has an injury we don't know about, but he's got to have more than 8 touches because knowing how your offense is. But I think this game's more about Texas. They came into a crazy environment. It's the point. The spread was like 7.5, but looking back, man, that was so easy just to pick Texas. Texas is a good football team. They're a legit national.
We tried to get too cute with it, man.
Yeah, we did, and I think it was the spread that I was like, dang, 7.5 points. But Texas, I think they've. This is early, and I don't like Texas, but I think they're a legit national title contender with Georgia and Ohio State. And I think they're the only 3 right now who you can say 100%. These are your 3 dogs in the country.
I agree 100%. Well, one guy I want to point out on Texas defense, Andrew Makumba. Every time I was looking up, especially in the first half, that guy was right there by the tackle or he was right there and on a pass play breaking it up. Consistently making an impact. I had not really known a lot about him, but I think that might be somebody to watch out for on that defense. He looked very solid, and I know Michigan's offense is nothing to, look twice at. However, you're still playing in the big house, emotions are high, and he was out there making plays consistently. So Andrew Makumba, somebody to look into. That's the name of the day. But yeah, I think my biggest disappointment, and we'll finish with this before we get to Tennessee, NC State, is that I woke up on Saturday morning and chose to bet on Davis Warren and not Quinn Ewers. So I might need to get checked into a mental hospital for that one. All right, moving on. Man. This was a splattering. Now, I was at a wedding for this game while this game was on, so I only got to watch bits and pieces right leading into halftime. But then I went back and watched some highlights. Well, it was pretty much just a Tennessee highlight film, but this was a splattering. It looked one-sided every time I was looking up at the TV to watch it. Oh, by the way, shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Hogan. Congratulations on getting married. Clayton is a new listener of the podcast now, so congratulations to you too. But when I did go back and watch, I was kind of shocked that Nico's stat line. I mean, that line was at like 250. And we had it in the parlay this week, and he only hit 211. 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Little concerning, but like we said, we see the potential in him, and he's got potential, and he's doing things that not a lot of people at his age can do. And it's going to be part of that growing experience. So, yeah. But I know you got some on Dylan Sampson and others, but I will say this as far as NC State goes, man, my Sunbelt supremacy guy, Grayson McCall. He did not look good. He has not looked good yet in 2 games, and he played Western Carolina game 1. So this might be a rougher season for them. I mean, you got to get Kevin Concepcion the ball, dude. I mean, he got it 5 times for 53 yards, but I had an anytime touchdown bet on that guy. Like, that guy's got to get in the end zone. You got to find a way to get him involved in your offense. Yep. Hollywood Smothers, 6 carries, 25 yards. I mean, only 39 total rushing yards. I think Tennessee's defense isn't getting enough credit. Everybody talks about the high pull offense. This defense might be legit, dude. So I'll let you hop into this game a little bit.
Yeah. Going off of what you said about KC Concepcion, I mean, yeah, he had 5 catches, but last year, we talked about this in the preview, he was one of their top 2 rushers for NC State. And I think last week against Western Carolina, he had 4 or 5 carries off of just jet sweeps, end arounds, whatever. In this game, didn't have one single carry. And I know that's not a game-changing point. Like if he would have had 3 carries for 20 yards, he might win. No, but after 2 weeks, we know and everybody sees this is your guy. Like Hunter said, you have to make this guy. He's got to get the ball constantly, especially in a game like this. But I think we talked about Hunter talked about Nico for a minute. He threw 2 picks. He kind of sloppy, but he did what he had to. He made a lot of plays with his legs. I think he had 8 carries, 65 yards, and a touchdown. One of those touchdowns was just awesome. But I think it's more. I think the player of this game is Dylan Sampson. Put the team on his back. 20 carries, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he had 3 catches out of the backfield for 37 yards. That offensive line paved the way for them the whole game. And I think one of the things we were talking about, especially me, I have NC State as a playoff team. I mean, damn, that's freaking terrible. My biggest sell on NC State this year was the defense coming into it. They're bringing a lot of people back. Dave Doran always has a good defense, and they just got ran. I mean, that front seven got obliterated, and they did not have a rush. The whole game, the entire game, they had 3 down linemen and 2 linebackers who were wide, like outside of like the B gaps almost. And that's why Sampson was able to get so many carries. Heupel just leaned on the run game. But at some point, you got to load the box a little bit more. When Sampson's getting whatever, 6 yards a carry, load the box. They rushed. And even when Nico dropped back, there were only 3 guys rushing the whole game. I feel like we've seen this some with Georgia in the past. Well, we're just rushing 3 down linemen, not even edge rushers. And Nico was just able to sit back there and do whatever the hell he wanted to. I don't understand why that wasn't a halftime adjustment. Because I remember at halftime I actually watched it with my girlfriend after we got back after I got back from Sanford. And I remember telling her I was mad because I had NC State. Why are we only rushing 3 players? It does not make sense. Nico's just sitting back there and not doing whatever the hell he wants to. But more on Tennessee, Dylan Sampson, if they can establish a run like that in the SEC, I think that's one of the biggest factors in SEC football, being able to establish a run game, regardless of who your quarterback is or your running back. In the SEC, especially on the road, you got to get a run game going. That's huge for Tennessee, especially to see a guy like that I don't think was on a lot of people's radar. Nico, he went 16 of 23, 211 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Yeah. One of the interceptions was bad. I don't remember seeing the other one. But their defense, man, they played great. And like Hunter said, Grayson McCall, unfortunately, he might not be that guy. We'll see. But got to get KC the ball more.
But as we said last week, whenever who was it, LSU? Who else lost last week? A&M. Hey, they still got their entire season in front of them.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I'll go ahead and tell you right now, I think you can go 8-4 and break some, tie-breaking rules and somehow find your way into the ACC.
Yeah, I mean,
game. The way this conference is looking.
Yeah, their schedule. I mean, they have Louisiana Tech this weekend, and then they go to Clemson, which is going to be tough. Clemson's already 7.5-point favorites in that one. But then you have Northern Illinois at home. Is that going to be a game? We'll talk about that more in a little bit. Wake Forest at home, and then you get Syracuse at home. So 3 straight home games there. You get Cal on the road, who just beat Auburn, Stanford, and at home, and then you get Duke at home. You go to Georgia Tech at North Carolina. So it's not a crazy hard schedule. You have some teams on there who are probably on the same caliber as you right now, but games that you can win, games that are favorable as far as on the road or who you get at home. So, but that Clemson game, that's going to be a big game for them. Like you said, they still have, just like last week, a lot of teams still have everything they want right in front of them, especially one team that we're going to get to here in a little bit.
100%. All right. Well, next up, it's your boy, Coach Prime.
Yep.
The Fighting Coach Primes.
No sunglasses this week.
Yeah, no, he doesn't deserve that after this performance. And then after this, there's always some sort of shenanigans with that guy, I swear. So Shout out to Will Compton and Bussin' with the Boys with Dylan Raiola posing the I do got the watch though. Yeah. Shadur doing the Shadur celebration or whatever the hell it is. I don't know. I can't get behind all that. So I once again was at a wedding when this game was going on. I did get to see most of the fourth quarter, I should say. And then I went back, watched it. And this is just the same thing that we saw last year out of Colorado. Their offensive line sucks. Shadur has no time, and like Jake and I said last week, like, do we agree with all the off-field and all the prima donna BS? No, we don't. But this guy is still a really good quarterback, and I mean, even with a crappy offensive line, he still found a way to throw for 244 yards against this Nebraska team. He still stays in the pocket. He did have a pick, but when you're trying to make plays at the end of the game and you're down 28 to nothing at halftime, you got to risk that. Travis Hunter, 10 receptions, 110 yards, no touchdown. I was kind of shocked by that. I figured he'd probably get in, but we said the key to this game, or at least I did. I think Jake agreed with me on it when we were previewing it. The key to this game was just don't let Colorado break away with the explosive plays. If you let them break away with the explosive plays, you're going to lose, because that's what this team is all about, is explosion. And Nebraska did just that. 16 total rushing yards for Colorado this game. Shadur was sacked 6 times. Nothing new there. They had one fumble and one pick, and Nebraska had none. And the biggest thing last year in this game was Nebraska had 4 turnovers, and this year Colorado has 2. Nebraska didn't have to do anything too fancy. They didn't have to put up a lot of points. Dylan Raiola looked pretty solid, 23 of 30, 185 yards and a touchdown. Nothing flashy, not, trying to throw the deep ball consistently, just doing what he needs to do to get it done. He's growing as a player each and every week. And Nebraska, on the other hand, ran for 149 yards. Dante Dowdle, 74 yards, 2 touchdowns. Leading receiver only had 49 yards. So, like I said, nothing crazy through the air. Nebraska just got it done on defense and did what they had to do on offense. Shout out to Coach Rule for building the program over there. And with an easy schedule, I mean, if they can keep up consistency and play consistent defense, this could be a undefeated team heading into Columbus week 8 or 9 whenever they travel over there. Now, will they compete in that game? Well, we'll see. But they do have a chance to be right there in the mix of it halfway through the season.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Matt Rule knows what he's doing. And like you just saw on the graphic there, they were up 28. They had 28 points scored at halftime. And in the second half, they kind of slowed down a little bit. Got a few other. Dowdle could have went for 30 and 200 if he wanted to, but they got several other guys in the mix running the football. Didn't throw the ball a lot. I just don't think they want to show much. They knew they had the game won. They controlled it the whole way through in the trenches, like Hunter said. And yeah, I mean, as far as Nebraska goes, Raiola, he's going to keep growing week to week and hit this schedule so favorable for him to grow as a quarterback each week. I mean, they got Northern Iowa this Saturday. Next Saturday they have Illinois at home. Illinois is coming off a high this week. That'll be his probably biggest test to date. I mean, Colorado was it really that big of a test? Did he have to do anything on late third downs? No, he never had to. So that'll be his first true test, in my opinion. And then there's a few other maybe sneaky games, but ultimately it goes down to, like Hunter just said, at Columbus, October 26th, which is about a little over a month away from now, but it's going to get here before we know it. So we'll see by then. Not a lot on Nebraska. They did what they had to do. Handled the trenches, 28 points, ran all over them. So yeah, but as far as Colorado goes, it's just like Hunter said, and it's almost boring to talk about Colorado because it's the same shit over and over again. Like, I don't understand why this team at this point, like right now, last year started out hot. It was exciting. You had Dion as a head coach. He had 2 sons on the team. Travis Hunter is one of the best playmakers in college football, if not the best. But at this point, why are we talking about them so much? They suck. They suck. They might win 3 games this year. I don't even know what their schedule looks like, but they're just that bad. Their defense isn't good. And that's what sucks. Their playmakers are unbelievable. Jimmy Horn, Travis Hunter, Shador, obviously. The new guy was at Wester. Travis,
Yeah.
they have guys.
I mean, they got Will Shepard from Vandy, and they have Dallin Hayden from Ohio State at running back. Like, skill position is not the problem, but if you got nobody blocking for them, they're not going to be able to do anything.
No, nothing. And we talked, and Hunter just said this. We don't Shador is a very good quarterback. He's going to be an NFL player. But the off-field antics and the interview at the end of the game. Did you watch the interview, Hunter? Did you see that?
I saw a clip of it on Instagram, CBS.
It just the way he carries himself. You're the quarterback. All right. When you think about any college football team, you think the team itself, and then you think any football team, the quarterback. That's who everybody looks at. They look at you when you're winning. They look at you when you're losing. Unfortunately, that's just how it goes. And when this guy gives a pregame or postgame interview after the game, the way he carries himself, like, yeah, I know it sucks. You just lost against your rival. That sucks. But the immediate response to that question in that interview being, well, how many times did Raiola get touched? Come on, man. Like that. I know I 100% agree with him. It sucks that how good you are, how good of a talent you are, your offensive line is terrible and you don't have any time. But those are your guys. I don't care who you play next week. Those are guys, and even Tyler can tell you, it is not a good look and a good feeling as a lineman when your quarterback just trashes you, regardless if it's in public or to other people. I just don't think that's a good look for him. And if I was one of Colorado's offensive linemen, there'd be a few plays next week where I take a play off. And it just keeps coming. This is my opinion. I really believe that. And the way he handled that question, I didn't like. Don't throw it on your offensive line. I didn't like the way he handled that question. So, but yeah, same shit, different week for Colorado, and I think it's going to be that way in this whole season. So,
I'm right there with you, man. But this game kind of boring to talk about. Not like you said, we're on the same team. Shout out to Nebraska though. The much earned win. I'm happy for Coach Rule. I've always been a fan of Matt Rule. I'm happy that he's starting to turn another program around, and a program that is very historically good, and maybe one day he can bring them back to the top. So, All right. Now, here's a game we did not preview heading into week 2, but I'd argue that it was the game of the week.
Yeah.
I think this is probably the best game on television that I saw all week. And you could not have convinced me in the preseason that this would have been the game of the week in week 2. But shout out to Arkansas and Bobby Petrino for getting the ball rolling, man.
Yeah.
So I'll let you kind of start this one off. I know you said you watched it as well.
Yeah, I watched this before the Georgia game on Saturday. This was a good game. Bobby Petrino, they came out just swinging. And I think last week, I meant to go back and look, but I had Arkansas as my team on fire after week 1. I think that was who I had. I remember talking about them. Just after week 1 performance, they put up 70 in week 1. And then week 2, you're going to Oklahoma State, and might be tough. Well, Mike Gundy, his teams always come out flat. You're up 14-0 at the end of the first quarter. They were rolling, and Arkansas. I'm on a high as an Arkansas fan right now, and both teams tried to lose this game. They just both played sloppy. I think they're 2 sloppy football teams in general, but they're both fun. It was a fun game to watch as a fan. Taylor Green, man, 26-45, 416 yards. That's a stat line right there, bud. Oklahoma State's their secondary got exposed a lot, especially there was just a lot of big time plays in this game. So yeah, I was an Oklahoma State spread better in this game, and that was very sweaty. I have Oklahoma State as my Big 12 champion, and I'm still on that. They showed some grit this week, won in overtime. I like it a lot. Alan Bowman's got a lot of work to do though, man. And my biggest thing was Ollie Gordon. He was one of the people the players that people were talking about winning the Heisman this week. Coming into the season. I'm sorry, my bad. 17 carries, 49 yards. I think at one point he had like 0 yards there, like 8 carries. It wasn't like that, but it was really bad. That offensive line, I know they've returned like at least 4 starters up front, and it's Arkansas football. You get Ollie Gordon going. That's what this team moving forward they're going to revolve around is getting the run game going with Ollie Gordon. He's the best playmaker in your team, without a doubt. You got to get him going. So yeah, that's all I have on this game.
Yeah, no, man. I'm excuse me. I'm right there with you. I got to see Ollie Gordon get going, especially in the second half. They really were not even giving him touches or opportunities.
No, Alan Bowman threw the ball 48 times.
I know, and I will say, when it mattered most, it looked like he was coming up solid. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
He did a little bit better. Don't get me wrong, the stat line is not the best, but he did better than what I thought in the second half. That's when I really got attached to this game Because at one point, I mean, it was 21-0, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been four. I know for sure it was 14-0. It might have been 21-0, 21-7. It was at least 21-7 going into halftime. But the turnovers and the questionable plays, that's what ended up costing Arkansas this game. They had 3 turnovers, 2 fumbles, and a pick. Taylor Green, though, man, not somebody I had on my radar as a standout player in the SEC.
No.
He is good. He can escape the pocket. He can get you those extra yards, and he can launch the ball down the field. Jaquindon Jackson, did not have that guy on my radar. 24 carries, 150 yards, and 3 touchdowns. But at the end of the day, who would you rather have? And I know we're Georgia guys here, but Mike Gundy or Sam Pittman. I think this game came down to coaching at the end of the day, if I'm being completely honest with you. But shout out to both of these teams. Amazing game to watch. Shout out to all Oklahoma State bettors like Jake and I were this week. I mean, I'm not going to lie. When it was 21-0, I was just like, well, this one's over. And Oklahoma State found a way. And you know what they say, Jake? Good teams win, but great teams cover. So
yeah, that's exactly right.
All right. Well, that was our little under the radar game of the week that we did not have circled, but glad that we got some great action under the radar game. But you want to talk about some under the radar? You know, I didn't think Maction started for another 2 or 3 weeks, but Maction started this past Saturday. Dude, what in the world is this? I'll get to Notre Dame in a second. No, I got some stuff to talk on Notre Dame. But I was looking at the score, or no, I didn't even know. I didn't even know until you texted in our group chat. Can we talk about Bowling Green? I was like, what? Who's Bowling Green playing this week? I didn't even know. And I look at the score, and it is, what was it, 21-7? When I looked at the score, and I was like, what in the world is going on right now? There's no way this is happening. Penn State ultimately does survive. And when I mean survive, I mean they needed a late game touchdown to get this into a 2-possession game.
Yeah.
To win by, I guess they only won by 7 points, but I don't even know. I don't even remember the score off the top of my head, but they needed a late touchdown to secure this game. But shout out to the MAC, dude. Like, Bowling Green first half money line, somebody actually bet that at plus 1,800. Shout out to you. I don't know who in their right mind would do that, but like, shout out to you. So, look, can we talk about Drew Aller now? Because I'm ready. You know, you told me I was going to be his biggest fan, and this guy was 13 of 20, which isn't that bad at all. 204 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. I mean, does this guy only play good against West Virginia? Does he like only get up for West Virginia games? Because I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
Not there yet. I said it'd be a few weeks.
But
I mean, they ran the ball all over Bowling Green. I mean,
I hope so.
One thing about Drew Aller that I will critique him with, he's got to find somebody other than his tight end. I think Julian Fleming is who they have. He came from Ohio State. He only had 1 catch.
He didn't have any against West Virginia. This guy can't get off the bus.
Yeah, he's got to find. I mean, I love hitting your tight end. Yeah, Tyler Warren had 8 catches for 146 yards, but you've got to find that number 1 guy who's a receiver who can make plays and get the ball to him in space and allow him to make plays after the catch. They haven't found that guy yet, and I think once they do Drew Aller, you'll see that from Drew Aller. He'll be a better quarterback. But Bowling Green came out striking. I'm going to try to pronounce this guy's name. Connor Bazelak, the quarterback. He threw the ball around the yard. He had 2 picks, but hell, he looked like just dialed the entire time.
They had 375 yards of total offense. What the hell is this Penn State defense doing? Talk about getting off the bus.
Yeah.
They didn't get out of the hotel room.
No, I think you're right. And I think potentially there's a little bit of potential for a look ahead spot here because the next 5 weeks for Penn State are not too pretty. They don't have any like rollover games for a while. But regardless, I didn't watch much of it, but not a good look for Penn State. Not a good look for a lot of teams this week, though. Before we talk about this next one, Hunter, talk to me about what you think about the Fighting Irish. What unfolded on Saturday afternoon?
Who is this a worse look for? Is this a worse look for Notre Dame, or is it a worse look for Texas A&M? That's my question. Because how in the hell do you go into College Station, one of the toughest places to play, not just in the SEC, but in the United States of America for college football? You go in there, you put on a defensive masterclass, which, I mean, you only let up 16 points in this game. I'd say that's pretty dang good. And, well, the offense did look a little sluggish, but you were pushing the boys in maroon around. We talked about it. Their offensive line and their defensive front were pushing SEC talent around that field. And then you're going to let little old Northern Illinois. I'm sorry, did I forget? Is Jordan Lynch still playing at Northern Illinois? Because that's the last time these guys were even close to something called relevant. Okay? And you're going to let them come in there. And it wasn't even like you had a lead and they came back. No, you had to come back on them. They were beating you going into halftime. They were beating you the entire first half. You never had the lead. You didn't get the lead till the third quarter.
Yeah.
You just let little old Northern Illinois and somebody called Ethan Hampton beat you. And he only had 198 yards and a touchdown. That's good defense, if you ask me. But allowing 190 yards on the ground, that's just piss poor. I'm sorry. That to play a MAC school at home, coming off a big win. I don't care if you came off a big win or not. I don't care if you just beat Georgia at Georgia in week 1. You cannot do this to a G5 school. Yeah. Riley Leonard, we got more on you. Don't you worry. I will wait. I will keep my calm. Jeremiah Love, though, I mean, 79 yards rushing, not bad. Both. I'm still waiting on a receiver. Let me know when a receiver gets 50 yards for Notre Dame in a game.
Yeah.
But shout out to the Northern Illinois, and I got more on their coach in a little bit, but man, shout out to them because you never expect this kind of stuff, and I don't know what you have to tell your team to truly believe. Because I mean, we all know when these lower classification schools. I mean, also shout out Notre Dame, you paid this team $1.8 million to kick your ass, but when you're paying these lower classification schools to come play you, I mean, those guys typically have the feeling that they're going to go in there and get their ass kicked. But I don't know what you guys say to them to truly make them believe. Maybe it's that first touchdown that they had, and it's like, oh gosh, like we got a chance here, and that can change the entire complexion of the game. But shout out to the MAC, dude. I can't wait for MACtion starting on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays in a few weeks. Come on, man.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Shout out to Northern Illinois. My biggest takeaway from this game was, as far as Notre Dame's offense go, Jeremiah Love had a great game last week against Texas A&M on the ground. This week he only had 11 touches. 11 touches. And I know it's Northern Illinois. I understand that. But Riley Leonard, a decent quarterback. I mean, after this week, you can't really argue that much. But he threw the ball 32 times in a game. With Notre Dame's schedule, and after you got the biggest win on your schedule, or the biggest game out of your way, biggest game out of the way last week against A&M, your next game that you have to really, really get up for is USC Week 12. The rest of the season, Riley Leonard, just hand the ball. Hand the ball. It's a lot like Michigan last year. J.J. McCarthy doesn't have to do much. He could run a little bit, but Riley Leonard's a better thrower. He should never have to throw the ball 32 times in a football game until Week 12 against USC. And even then, with how USC's defense has been, you should be able to ground and pound against them.
Whoa, you calm down.
It was LSU. It was LSU. That's all I'm saying. What was I saying? But yeah, they were never down by like 2 touchdowns to a point where they should have threw the ball 32 times. That just doesn't make sense. Riley Leonard is a guy who's going to be able to throw the ball 15 times off a play action. You're going to be worried about that the run back, or a lot of RPO action. He's going to be able to give it off, hand it off, and then you have Jeremiah Love. Obviously, he's a great running back. He only had 11 carries. He's got to have 20 to 25 carries in this football game. Lean on that offensive line that paved the way last week. Why? And you haven't found a guy, like Hunter said, Notre Dame has not found that guy yet at receiver. And they had 2 transfers. Bo Collins, I mean, he had 5 catches of 45 yards, but not feeding him enough. and not making plays after the catch. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, not a good look for Marcus Freeman and the boys for sure. Shout out Northern Illinois.
Dude, shout out Northern Illinois. Shout out the MAC, man.
Shout out the Mac.
Nothing better. All right. Well, I don't really want to have to get into this, but we have to. So yeah, that happened this week.
What another great week,
dude,
for me.
Stop. Just stop. Don't rub it in. I don't need it rubbed in. I know you're not rubbing it in, but dang, dude. I mean, I just cannot catch a break. Well, actually, I did solid last week. I mean, I went 2-1, but as far as plays given out on this podcast, but
Kentucky getting, I mean, I understand if they win by a touchdown, but just getting beat outright at home after the South Carolina performance against Old Dominion, which I think Kentucky has a lot of questions and a lot of stuff to talk about at quarterback. Vandegrift did not look good. I think he went like 10.
Dude, they only completed 6 total passes.
Yeah, that's not going to win you a football game, especially with who you got coming down this week.
I will say, like, South Carolina's, and this is like one of those things where like we're gonna have to see it over time, and we will this week when South Carolina takes on LSU, who arguably has one of the top 3 offensive lines in the SEC. I could argue that between Georgia and Texas and LSU, but is South Carolina's defensive line like that damn good? Or is Kentucky's offensive line that abysmal? Because, like, yes, Vandegrift only completed 3 passes, and the other quarterback came in late, only completed 3. But it didn't matter. The guys were always under pressure. Like, it was bad, bad, bad. I was really high on Kentucky. I was really low on South Carolina because, I mean, I'm not high on Old Dominion. I follow the Sun Belt. They're not that good. And they struggled. And I'm still not sold on Lenore Sellers at all. I'm going to need to see that one play out over time. But, I mean, you know what? Shout out to Carolina and Shane Beamer. I mean, dude, this could be like one of those things that, like, you look back at the end of the season, if he's only got 5 wins, dude, this would be one of those that he wasn't supposed to win. That could save his job.
Yeah.
On how this season turns out. So maybe South Carolina's going to be good. I mean, heck, game day's going there for the first time in like 10 or 12 years when they play LSU this week. So I was off on Kentucky, and then dude, this one hurt. I moved from 11-2 to 11-3 in the last 14 games, and it was there. It was locked in.
It was there.
It was locked in, and then Rocco Beck showed up in the second half, and then the field goal that pushed it over. I mean, shout out to Iowa State for winning the Cyhawk. I mean, that was actually a really solid game. Still weird that Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson are calling Big Ten games. I got to get used to that. But, man, that was painful. That one was painful. And then Syracuse. Hey, we were both on this one. We were all about some Syracuse. I'll tell you right now, dude, Kyle McCord looking pretty good for the Orange. Now, granted, he's played Georgia Tech and Ohio, but it's almost like he's got all this pressure relieved off of him now that he does.
Exactly. That was what I was going to say about him.
And he can just go out there and play ball. And he's got some Georgia talent and some other talent. Like I said, last year, LaQuinn Allen, he rushed for 1,000 yards. So the running back's not bad. They got Syracuse. I mean, heck, we talked about it. The ACC is going to be wide open. I had them as my wild card team. Who knows? Maybe they can be in the game, and Tech's run comes to an end. Short lasted as a ranked team. We already covered Oklahoma State and the Texas-Michigan game, and don't even – Jake should have gone 1 and 2 with me this week. I'll let you talk about Pittsburgh. Jesus.
Yeah, what another great positive week from these plays. 5-1 on the season. I mean, we're just printing out money at this point. Oklahoma State, we showed a lot of grit. Oklahoma State, I have them as my Big 12 winner, making it to the college football playoff. They showed grit. They showed toughness. Won the game late. We're going to get Ollie Gordon down. Covered by 8 points. We didn't even kick the field goal, which we had to go for 2. Got the 8-point, 2-point conversion. Love it. Texas, Michigan. This was the right read, and Hunter, you know it. This was the right
I'm with you. I was on it.
Up 30, and I freaking said last week in the preview that we will never see, if you're listening to this, that if Texas won, it was going to be a 31-3, 31-6 football game. That's what it was going to be. It's going to be a blowout. And if Michigan won, it'd be 20-17. Well, the damn thing was 31-6, and fucking Davis Warren is throws just a trash touchdown. This should have went under. Bad beat there. We'll bounce back. Pittsburgh. Let me talk about Pitt. They're my team of the week. I know we have Fire and Ice coming up. They were down 27-6. I was so pissed off headed into the Georgia game because they were down. Well, then I look at my phone. Touchdown, field goal, kept going. They scored 22. They were down 27-6 with a minute left in the third quarter. 27-6 on the road. I don't care who the hell it's against. Came back and ultimately won this football game. Pittsburgh money line. I freaking told you. I don't care how bad the teams are. Pittsburgh came out and won outright. Left the points at the door. I love it. We're 5-1, fellas. We're 5-1. We're gonna keep rolling too. We're gonna keep rolling.
Hey, shout out to you, man. Shout out to you. I wish. Hey, but don't act like you weren't on two of those bets on the left side either. I know you were.
Oh, I was definitely. I don't know if I was on Iowa, but Syracuse was the pick of the week. And then Kentucky, oh my gosh, that pick felt so free. But whatever. Hey. Hopefully they get up this Saturday. I look forward to a good, at least competitive first quarter when I go to Lexington. So we'll see.
Hey, you know what they say: win some, lose a lot. So
that's right.
Week 2, 3-leg parlay. Not going to talk too much about it. Don't even get me started on App State. That one's on me. I convinced Jake that we would put that one in there, and I think that game was 56-0 at halftime. And Nico fell short, so we were both wrong on that one. And the safe spot, the Nebraska money line. I actually made a bet with Jake and Tyler before the game happened. I said if Colorado wins, I'll dress up as Coach Prime for Halloween, and actually, I think they would have liked to have seen that, if I'm being honest. So.
Yeah. And just one thing about this App State plus 17.5, I think that was a good spot. But looking back, and just shout out, and I hate to do this for them, but shout out to Clemson. They came out and scored 56 points in the first half. I don't care who you're playing. To do that in the first half, coming off of a loss like last week, I think it's a good look for Dabo and Clemson. Because if you would have came out in this game and it would have been a 4-quarter football game where they were in it against a team like App State, that wouldn't have been a good look. And the ACC is even more wide open. But for them to just come in swinging their dick all around, good for Clemson. Good bounce back.
Clemson needed it.
Yeah.
Clemson needed it. And you know what? That's the Clemson team I thought I was going to see this year. So maybe they'll be able to keep it up.
Yeah, we'll see.
We will see. And then, man, we both got this one wrong. And I don't think either one of them were bad reads. I mean, Travis Hunter had over 110 yards receiving.
10 catches. He had 10 catches.
I know. And Donovan Edwards, he only had 8 carries, and he was like 10 yards away from cashing this. I don't know why he didn't get the ball more. I don't think either one of these were necessarily bad reads, but we'll get better.
We'll bounce back.
So I think it is now time for the impressive teams of week 2. I'll go first. I mean, we all agreed on all this together. I've already got the Cal Auburn game pulled up, and like I said, I've said it twice. Yes, I was at a wedding on Saturday, and so I didn't get to watch this game. And I'm gonna be honest, I've barely seen any footage of this game, but just strictly going off the box score, Peyton Thorne threw for just over 50%. He only had 165 yards. And then, Jake, I don't know if you saw any of this. He had 4 picks.
Yeah. Peyton Thorne, not a good look, man. Why they don't have another guy to be behind him, it does not make sense.
28.9 QBR. While on the other side, you have Fernando Mendoza, who I've never heard of, at Cal, traveling across the country, goes 25-36, 233 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Cal carried it for 101 yards on the ground. I mean, Jarquez Hunter for Auburn had 68. They rushed for 121. Doesn't look that bad. And the fact that, Auburn had 4 picks and only lost this game by 1 touchdown is kind of crazy to me. But, yeah, shout out to Cal. That's a long travel spot. And, man, we've said it 2 or 3 times. ACC wide open.
Yeah. No, I agree. I didn't watch much of this game at all. I went back and watched the highlights on YouTube. But this is the most Hugh Freeze loss ever. You score, 73 points in week 1. The offense is rolling. Peyton Thorne looks good. He didn't have to be good. And then you're like, okay, this team could start out 5 or 6-0 in the season. Maybe they get Oklahoma at home, you get Arkansas at home, and then you play Georgia. I mean, sky's the limit right now, right after week one, and then just come out flat. One of the toughest places to play and lose to Peyton Thorne. I don't know. That got to find somebody else. Got to find somebody else. Is all I got to say. Because I don't know. We'll see.
So next up, we got the Iowa State Cyclones. Like I said, first time they've won the Cyhawk game, and I don't know the exact time, but it's been a minute since they've brought that trophy back to Ames. And my favorite joke on this podcast is talking about getting off the bus, which is pretty much just saying like, oh, they just haven't shown up. Like they're obviously there, but you just would never know. You think they're still sitting on the bus. And Rocco Beck just didn't get off the bus until the second half, and neither did the entire Iowa State team. They were down 13-0 at halftime and came out and scored 20 points in the second half, which you don't see a lot from an Iowa defense. Kirk does not typically do that. I got more on Kirk Ferentz in a second. Got a funny stat. Rocco Beck shows up out of the second half, 272 through the air, 2 touchdowns, 1 turnover. They only rushed it for 89, which against Iowa, I got to say, is pretty solid. Cade McNamara, this is the stat line I used to sing, 99 yards passing and 2 picks. And Iowa yet still almost wins this game, loses it by a point, but shout out to the Cyhawks and Matt Campbell. That's a good win to have go into Big 12 play. Jake, you got anything to add? Or
Yeah, I think the most impressive thing about this was, like you said, I mean, they were down 13-0 at halftime, and to come out and score 20 points in the second half on a defense like Iowa, that what they've been the past few years, that's very impressive on the road too. So good win for Iowa State. Hunt, this was your number 1 pick. Who you got? What you got on Illinois this week?
Yeah, man. So it's ironic because I was sitting there when I first saw some of these betting lines coming out, and I was like, 5.5 against. I was like, oh, Jalen Daniels must have gotten hurt. Like something's going on. And then I'm like, no, he didn't get hurt. I was like, what? 5.5. So you know me, I logged onto the sports book. I was like, that's a fishy line. So let's go ahead and sprinkle on that Illinois money line a little bit, just a sprinkle. And actually, one of the few things that came home for me on Saturday. And Luke Altmaier might be the guy there. I'm not saying Illinois is going to compete in the Big Ten. I'm not saying they're going to show up in Indianapolis, but I think this is a big win for a program that doesn't get big wins. I mean, Kansas was ranked 19th last week. We talk about how they've got one of the deepest running back rooms. We talk about how Jalen Daniels, if he's healthy, is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And Illinois, now in 2021, I will say they started off the year like 7 or 8-0, and they had one of the top defenses in the country with Devon Witherspoon. But Luke Altmaier, 16-25, 192 yards. I think it's just impressive. Like, I just never, before the year started, would have been like, yeah, Illinois is going to get one against Kansas. A Kansas team that has been consistently improving with against, you look on the other side, you see Illinois, who's just, it's like, oh, they're middle of the road, below average Big Ten team. So that's impressive to me. Shout out to Sakari Franklin, 9 receptions for 99 yards on Illinois' team. So maybe they'll just be one of those thorns in the side in the Big Ten. Who knows? But I think it's caught me off guard. They got this dub, and shout out to them, and they impressed me in week 2.
Yeah, for sure. I think they're one of the teams in the Big Ten that can kind of just be that team, middle of the road. But if you have to go and play them at home, that's going to be tough to do. They're just one of those teams that could potentially ruin your season and be in any game they are at home just because of the defense they have. Not a good look for Kansas. And let me ask you this, Hunter. I meant to text you this on Saturday. Are you what are your thoughts on rushing the field? Do you have any thoughts on that? What's
as far as in what context?
Just in general. I mean, in any context. Let's take this context, for example. What's your thought?
Are you asking if I'm okay with rushing the field, like at all? Or are you asking me like if I'm like Jay Billis's bitch ass who is against storming the court and rushing the field for player safety?
And let's say like context of the game. So like, should Illinois have rushed the field in this game?
I don't know. Okay, first and foremost, I am 100% for storming the field. I mean, that college kids dream about doing that shit when they're hammered. Okay, so I'm all for it, and storming the court too. Kyle Filipowski's a little bitch. I'm getting off track. Anyways, so in this context, should Illinois have rushed the field? I mean, they got a ranked win.
Yeah.
How many
It's a
times?
ranked win.
How many times is Illinois going to be able to rush the field?
I think the threshold has to be like top 10. I think right there. Like it's got to be a top 10 win.
I can see that. But when I'm looking at it from this perspective, I mean, this place is probably like halfway sold out. Hardly anybody was probably there. They don't their stadium doesn't seat that much. And there's probably some guys there who are not going to see a bigger win than beating 19th ranked Kansas.
Yeah.
So I can get both sides. Like I get where you're coming from, but like when you're looking at it on the big stage, yes, I agree. But like for a school like this, let the kids have fun.
Yeah, let the kids play.
I mean, what the hell else is there to do in Champaign, Illinois?
Good point. Good point.
All right. So let's. We've already hit on all three of these teams, but if you want to trash them some more, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be short. Notre Dame, not a good look. Riley Leonard, you suck. Penn State, I didn't get to watch much of this game, but find a freaking receiver. Give Julian Fleming the ball. NC State, I hate it. I really do. I was really high on NC State coming into this year. That's just got manhandled against Tennessee. That game's so more about Tennessee to me, but NC State, just 2 straight weeks, not a good look, especially with how wide open the ACC is. You would think you get up a little bit more after week 0 and week 1 unfolded. So, yeah, those are our 3 disappointing teams of the week: Notre Dame, Penn State, and NC State.
I think they might be on. I think all 3 of them are on the next slide. Maybe not Penn State, but I've already hit on them enough. Yeah, all these teams like just disappointing. That might be an understatement, especially for you, Notre Dame. So, all right, here's the newest segment. Well, second time we've ran it up. Fire and Ice.
Fire and Ice, baby.
So, I'll go through who I had on fire this week first. So, some of you are like, who in the hell is Thomas Hammock? That would be the head coach of the Northern Illinois Huskies. And shout out to this guy for getting his team up and getting them convinced that they could go into South Bend and get the win. Like I was saying earlier, I don't know what the heck you had to say. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, and you can tell, like some of these coaches after their win, they're like, they're hyped up or they're casual or they try and like be, bigger than what they are. Like, oh yeah, we saw this coming in. No, this guy got emotional. And some people hate on the crying BS, but like when you care about your team like that, I'm all for it. Okay. And this guy goes on the post game. He's tearing up a little bit. He's like, I just told him you got to go out there and be yourselves. You don't need anything else. You don't need to do anything special except just bring yourself and play our game. So shout out to him getting this team fired up. And then player of the week, it's got to be Ashton Genty, dude. Well, there's a few other guys I definitely could have put on here, but I'm going to keep blazing this guy because now it's not just my team that this guy's ran it up on. He actually went on the road to Eugene, Oregon. This is the running back for Boise State, by the way. And I don't care if he plays for Boise State or not. This guy needs to be like in the Heisman conversation. Some people might think that's crazy. They're like, oh yeah, well you can say that because he ran for 270 yards on your team, but against your team, I should say rather. But this guy goes on the road to Oregon, gets the ball 25 times, 192 yards, averaging 7 yards a carry and 3 touchdowns against Oregon, a team who everybody was glazing up, including myself and including Jake, who are like, oh, there's no way they don't make it to the Big Ten championship. And now they've been in 2 very close games against lower classification, and I'm very scared that they are not going to be that good. But Ashton Genty, player of the week, I think it needs to be talked about a little bit in the Heisman conversation. I know some people are, especially over there at On 3. Shout out J.D. Piquel and Andy Simmons, but Ashton Genty, player of the week. And then team of the week, I got the Texas Longhorns. We already talked about them. I think, I and Jake both were a little bit lower on Texas heading into this season. We were kind of unsure, a lot of defensive question marks, and now they have truly solidified themselves as an oh shit opponent. Like this team's going to be right there in the mix of it at the end of the year in December and January. So I got them as my on fire team of the week.
Yeah, I love it. Especially the Thomas Hammock one. That one's good. All three of those very worthy of being on fire. Going into week 3, I'll start with Iowa State. We talked about. I won't say much about them, but just being able to score 20 points at Iowa, a team that has been known for their just crazy defense, to do it in 2 quarters, beat them on the road. Very exciting. They're on fire going into week 3 for me. Go over to player on fire going into week 3. Dylan Sampson. All the talk's been around Tennessee has been about Nico being a dark horse, or maybe not even dark horse, Heisman candidate. Squirrel White, Brew McCoy, that explosive offense. And I feel like a lot of people going in the last week couldn't name who their running back was. I'll admit that I was one of them. I don't think if you asked me last week who is Tennessee's running back, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But Dylan Sampson, if you don't know his name, you know it now. 20 carries, I think 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. Nobody can catch the ball out of the backfield. And against an NC State defense who is supposed to be very stout coming to this season, and especially getting closer to SEC play for them, he's going to be a huge factor in that Tennessee offense. Coach, I have Fran Brown, Syracuse head coach. 3-point dogs at home. Everything new around Syracuse football right now. Offensively, coordinators, everything. He came straight from Georgia, has that Georgia mentality. And if you didn't see his interview after the game about going for it and toughness and all that, you got to go watch it because he'll get you ready to run through a brick wall. Fran Brown on fire going into week 3. And their schedule, I pulled up their schedule while we were getting ready for this. Let me just rattle off the rest of the teams who they play. Holy Cross, UNLV, NC State, might not be as hard as we think. Pitt, Virginia Tech, they got exposed last week. Boston College, Cal, UConn, and Miami.
They
2-0.
They could.
I mean that the ACC is wide open, man. That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to get ahead of myself, but
they could be right there in the mix of it. But I like
Brown.
that. No, I like that Fran Brown pick, dude. I mean, this guy's never even been a coordinator before, much less a head coach, and he is running an entire program. And hey, dude, Syracuse is like, for whatever reason, if they're like 10-0 or 11-1, whatever, going into that Miami game.
That'll be nuts.
Is Kyle McCord going to be in New York?
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't think about that.
I mean,
that's crazy.
He's got the numbers right now.
Yeah, I think he's actually I looked at it earlier. I think he's like top 5 in the country in passing yards right now.
No, I mean, he is. He's right there, up there in it. I mean, dude, could you imagine the Ohio State?
He's third in the country.
Could you imagine the Ohio State fan base of Kyle McCord's in New York for the Heisman Trophy? And Syracuse is in the playoff? That would be crazy. But I like all those picks. I'm going to save player for last.
Syracuse plus 2,500 to win the ACC. I'm just throwing it out. Maybe not a bad idea. Maybe not.
A little sprinkle.
I'm
going to save player for last because you and I have the same one. Kirk Ferentz, my coach that is freezing cold. Y'all know Kirk Ferentz did not coach last week against Illinois State because he was serving a 1-game suspension for a recruiting violation. And Iowa scored 40 points last week. Cade McNamara actually had a solid stat line. And before you get all up in here like, oh, they're playing Illinois State. Well, they usually only score 10 points against those lower classification schools too. So it wasn't an Illinois State thing. This week, Cade McNamara can't touch 100 yards. He throws 2 picks, and they only score 19 points. That's a little sus if you ask me. Kirk Ferentz, you're on ice. Michigan, my team on ice this week. Pretty self-explanatory. I mean, I just had the Texas-Michigan game there for Fire and Ice. I mean, that offense is just abysmal. And as much as I'd like to praise their defense, I don't think their defense is bad, but I was giving them top 5, top 10 defensive praise for the past few weeks. And Texas has been marching down the field, or they did march down the field, I should say, rather, and made it look easy just about every single possession. So that's why this week I decided to have Michigan as my team on ice.
Yeah, good coverage there, Hunter. My coach on ice, and I know we talked about him earlier, Marcus Freeman. All the talk in the offseason, I feel like every college football fan is Notre Dame's got it easy. They're on a good football team. They got a free path to the playoff. And then after week 1, You were on fire, man. And between Notre Dame, like we've talked about this time after time, Texas A&M week 1 and then USC week 12, not a lot in between. And the few sneaky games in there, like Georgia Tech, for instance, on the road. Those were your few sneaky games, and nobody had Northern Illinois as your sneaky game, and now you're 1-1. Not a good look for Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. And then my team, I know we've talked about them more than once in this episode, NC State, man. Especially for myself personally, I have you as a college football playoff team, and we're just not. The Wolfpack's not a college football playoff caliber football team right now. So, yeah, that's who I got as my coaching team on ice. Me and Hunter have the same player on ice, and I feel like this is like unanimous. Like this is very easy to pick after last week who the pick on ice was.
Grayson McCall could have been a good one too.
Grayson McCall could have been a good one. But as far as this podcast goes, this was really easy for us. I'll let Hunter take it away. Talk to me about Riley Leonard, Hunter.
You know, I lose a lot of respect for players who I praise, and then they go out. They push a silver platter on the 50-yard line. They pull down their pants and take a massive shit. You know, I lose a lot of respect for people who do that. And then after I give them so much praise, and I'm like, dude, this is going to be the guy. Like, I couldn't tell you how many people this offseason are like, dude, Notre Dame's going to go 11-1 or 12-0, 10-2 worse. They might lose to A&M. They might lose to USC, but that's it. Dude, Riley Leonard's a dog. Did you see him play at Duke? He made Duke relevant. Like, he's going to come into this offense. I'm just glazing this guy up. And then he does this shit to me. 163 yards and 2 picks with a 25.8 QBR. He only averaged 5 yards a completion. Dude, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm sorry. You cannot be doing this to me right now. So, man, he's going to have to seriously turn it around. I was like, dude, if this guy can get it done with his arm and this Notre Dame offense, I know he's got it with his legs. I was telling people, dude, he's not a bad Heisman sprinkle. Just making me look stupid. That's all I got on Riley Leonard. You just keep his legs, son.
Yeah, right on. You hit the nail on the head there. I mean, disappointing. Very disappointing. I was one of those guys that just glazed this Notre Dame team, and Riley Leonard especially. I was a big Riley Leonard guy coming this season. That's 5 yards per completion is not a good look. So moving on, I think that's kind of the end of what we got on week 2 in college football. Now moving it on. So I think this is probably my favorite segment. Is our top 5 teams in the country. The list it's fluid. It's going to change every week. I'll start off with my top 5. Rattle through it pretty quick. So Georgia, I know they had a game they didn't have to get up for, but after last week's Clemson game, and everybody knows when you ask anybody in college football who's the number 1 team in the country, the majority answers it might be, you could say Ohio State, but it's Georgia. They're the number 1 team in the country right now. They're there until I see something less, and I think in the next few weeks they might drop down a little bit or drop out of it. Number 2, Texas, big win for them. That, like we talked about earlier, I think they've stapled themselves as a college football playoff, college national title contenders, legit. And then I have Tennessee on there, a big win. I mean, you scored 51 points against the top 25 opponent. That's worth being noted for. And then I have Miami and Ole Miss as my next 2. So Texas and Tennessee kind of replaced where Miami and Ole Miss were. Both of them had down weeks, but both of those offenses continue to just roll, especially Ole Miss. They are rolling. Jacksonville, I don't care who they're playing. Scary offense. I'm just now realizing I don't have Ohio State on this list. I still need to see them play. I'm not taking anything away from the team that Ohio State is right now. I think they're one of the top 3 teams in the country. But as far as this list goes, it's what we want it to be. After week 2, that's my top 5 teams in the country. Hunter, tell me about your top 5.
Yeah, so Texas and Georgia, you can pretty much say you can make that 1A, 1B and interchange them. I don't really have a preference. I think it's just, Texas had a very convincing win this week. I feel like, maybe Michigan and Clemson are closer. I don't know. I don't know. That's pretty much maybe some sort of a common baseline for both teams. I'm not exactly sure the best way to put it, but like I said, 1A, 1B. I'm just a little bit more sold on Texas if you want to really get deep into it, I think the only reason I put them up there is like, well, they played a Mountain West team and they played a good Big Ten team who just won the national championship, and they played on the road, whereas Georgia played at a neutral site, which probably had more Georgia fans there, for being honest, and they played an FCS school. Both teams look convincing. 1A, 1B for me. Tennessee 3. I mean, dude, dropping a 50 burger in Charlotte this week. Dropped 69 last week. They played one inferior opponent. They've played one team who we were both very high on. I like Tennessee, and they can be a scary team. And I think a lot of people are underestimating how good that defense can be. For number 4, you could really put Ohio State, or I think Ohio State and Ole Miss are in the same category for me right now. They've both played 2 inferior opponents and nothing to shake a stick at. They've both taken care of business. I just was higher on Ohio State coming into the year, even though I was really high on Ole Miss this year as well. But I had Ohio State in my top 5 last week. No need to drop them out. And then I added Miami in here. I don't know how good Florida is, but they took care of business again this week. They've been a really good offense, like you said. So I feel like they deserve to be in the top 5 as well.
Yep, for sure. I like it.
All right. Well, here's a new segment for all my boys out there. It is the Hunter Waldrop Eagle Report. Shout out to my Eags for getting their first win of 2024 last week. Gosh, got me going. So okay. I know how I kept saying I was at a wedding. It very much so was true. And there was a little back room where I could sneak away to and watch college football. And if you didn't know, the Eagles were on national television for the second week in a row. Don't get used to it. They're playing on True TV, a smaller TNT channel. And there was NC State, Tennessee on one screen. And then I took the other remote and changed it to the Georgia Southern Nevada game. And I sat in front of this TV and watched it. And then I went back and watched it again. And I was very impressed with the Georgia Southern Eagles defense. I mean, last week they gave up 1,000,000 yards on the ground. And I know they played Ashton Genty. I don't care, though. I mean, that guy set 2 records. We already talked about it last week. And Boise State, they might actually be a really good team. A lot of people were talking about them making the G5, being the G5 representative. They lost on a game-winning field goal to Oregon. They're a good team, and you know what? If you score 45 points on offense, there's no reason you should lose the game. I'm just saying. The defense is definitely the biggest concern right now, but we only gave up 17 points. We gave up 14 in the first half. The first 2 drives, I was like, oh, here we go again. We're going to give up 90 damn points. And then second quarter, nothing. Third quarter, only gave up a field goal. And then the fourth quarter, Nevada's got a game-winning drive going, and we get a strip sack on the 1-yard line to secure the win. I think the second biggest concern is the offensive line. We have a really good running back that nobody really knows about in Jalen White, and a pretty solid backup for Sunbelt standards at O.J. Arnold. But they only got 42 yards. The offensive line has got to get pushed, because I know Jalen White is good. I've seen him play. He is solid. But I will say, Clay Helton's doing a solid job of letting J.C. French get the ball out quick. He threw for 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, no turnovers is huge, especially when you have a defense that loves to just give up points like it's candy. And the receivers, all of us Georgia Southern fans, we were talking about how, dude, we've got probably the best receiving core in the Sun Belt. It's right up there at the top. You got Dalen Cobb, Derwin Burgess out of Oklahoma, LV Bunkley Shelton from Arizona State, and combining for 243 yards, like I just said. Huge that we've got the speed to get down the field. I'm glad to see the offense is showing some explosion. We're finding a way to score points, and hopefully this can be a game changer for us going into Sun Belt Conference play. But we got South Carolina State this week. We get our first little easy spot coming up, our one easy spot, because in 2 weeks we got to go on the road to Oxford, and at least we're going to get paid a lot of money to get our asses kicked by Ole Miss. So that's the Eagle Report for week 2.
Love it. Electric win down in Statesboro this weekend. Very exciting. I'm glad you got to see a little bit of it. Big defensive stand there on the goal line at the end. Yeah, good deal.
Yeah,
Is that
they
all we
played
got
in
today?
Nevada. They traveled to.
Oh, that was at Nevada. Oh, I thought it was in Georgia at Georgia Southern.
Oh no, this
Oh
one was
man,
on the road. On the
what a
road.
big road win across the country.
They didn't even leave till Friday evening.
Oh my god, that is awesome.
They didn't
The
leave till
Eagles, baby.
Friday evening. So shout
The
out to the
Eagles.
Eagles.
Shout out
All
to the
right.
Eagles and shout out to everybody. And what is it, Hunter? The Blue Room on Saturday night? Is that what it's called?
Something like that. Oh
Love
man.
it. Good stuff.
All
Yeah.
right.
Go for it, Hunter.
Oh, all
No,
right.
no, no. I was just giving you your last remarks, but I do before we say our closing remarks, I do have one question for you, and I wanted to ask it after week 0, really, after the Georgia Tech Florida State game, and then after last week. But and I think last week I just forgot. But this week I now want to ask it. So from a very broad scale of college football, right? The past few years, the transfer portal each year, it just feels like the transfer portal is getting more and more traction. There's more and more guys leaving year after year, and then you have the NIL ramping up. College football is just changing as a sport as a whole, all around, especially in the past 2 years. Okay, and then now you look at the way the first 2 weeks have gone. A lot of teams struggling. A lot of these bigger teams, like this week, Penn State, Notre Dame obviously got beat. A lot of these smaller teams, Boise State almost beating Oregon. And yeah, we can say, well, these bigger teams aren't getting up, or it's look ahead spots, or they're just coming out flat. Are we starting to see more parity? I guess is the word. I guess what me looking at it, I think it's the transfer portal. You're able to get a lot of guys into your program. And is it we finally starting to see more team? Is this going to be a theme for the next 12 weeks? Just teams that are like Arkansas, for instance. I mean, I feel like more than ever the first 2 weeks there's been teams that should handle a lot of these smaller schools, and they're not. Is that from the transfer portal and the changing world of college football? I wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I don't think the word is parity because I think the top teams are still the top teams. Maybe not Oregon, but like the Georgias, the Texases, and the Ohio States, and even the Bama. Like they're still the top teams. I think the word maybe transparency, just maybe how close some of these games are, stuff like that. However, I don't think this is a 12-week stretch type of thing. Now, I do think that the transfer portal has a play on it because, yes, some of these other schools are getting in, 5 stars and 4 stars from, wherever, whatever school they want to come from. But there's probably other high classification 3 stars and lower 4 stars, or maybe guys that they just missed on or wasn't a fit for that program that get to go to a lower classification school and they get to ball out. And maybe really weren't that bad of a talent, but they weren't a fit, or for whatever reason, they didn't get enough money, or they were paying somebody else money, whatever it is with the NI on the transfer portal. Just as much talent as you're bringing in, the talent, I guess, the distance between the talent of 2 players might not be as big as what some of these schools are seeing. And that's why another reason why I'm pretty high on Miller Moss. This guy had every reason to transfer for 4 years. Yeah. And he stuck it out, man. He stuck it out for 4 years. Even when they brought in Caleb Williams to start over him for 2 years, he stuck it out. And now look at him. He's developed. He didn't leave his team. So that's another reason I got high praise for him. But to answer your question in a long, roundabout way, I think this might be something you see the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, maybe just 3-4 weeks of the season. And then once some of these teams with that better talent and the better coaching and the more money get their feet under them a little bit, they're going to be on the ground running, and you'll maybe see some blowouts later on in the year. But, like, this might be a thing for the first few weeks of the season. I mean, Tulane this week almost beat Kansas State.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, they were winning that game, and they were tied in that game, and then a late turnover killed them. They only lost by 7 points. So, we'll see.
And I think, like you – sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But like you said, like, you don't think it's going to be a 12-week thing, which obviously not. I should have said more like 6 weeks, because obviously once we get to past week 6, it's pretty much all conference play. There's a few blowout games on the schedule here and there. But moving forward in the college football world, each year there's going to be all these transfers, regardless of school. I mean, there's going to be a lot of teams that go into the portal. Or the first few weeks are wide open. Really, you really got to take it with a grain of salt, because all these transfers, whether you're reconstructing your defense, you have a new quarterback transfer, new coordinators, whatever. I think the first few weeks it's going to take a lot of these teams to get their new transfers going, and in that period of building, getting the team chemistry going, learning the different systems that you're in, whether it's defense or offense, these lower classification teams are going to be able to be in games with bigger teams. So it's going to be interesting. I think the college football world is changing a lot before our eyes, but I think it's good. I think it's very exciting, especially early on, that we get to see some of these just crazy games, like the two biggest games this weekend with smaller teams compared to top 25 teams, Penn State and Notre Dame in their games. So just wanted to see your thoughts on that. So,
heck yeah, man. Well, this will be my last thoughts before I let Jake close out. Thank you all for listening. Sorry about last week again. I promise we're going to do better. We're going to be on that better schedule now. We're recording this on a Monday night, right after Monday Night Football, and there will be the NFL. We do have an NFL podcast coming out, but it is on Apple and Spotify only. It will not be on YouTube. So be on the lookout for that. And this is podcast 129, episode 8. And Jake, you got it, brother.
Yeah. So like Hunter said, there'll be an NFL podcast coming out. That was a preview. Keep in mind when that comes out, that's just a preview of the NFL season. We recorded that last week, but as you've heard already, our schedules last week were crazy. We're going to be more on top of things. Next time you hear from us, we'll be talking about the week 3 review. We're already to week 3. I feel like time's flying like crazy. Maybe talk a little bit of what unfolded this week in the NFL. We're getting close to October baseball. Me and Hunter have been talking about maybe throwing in a little baseball preview episode for the playoffs in October. October baseball is always fun in the midst of, mid college football season, NFL season. So we appreciate all of our close friends and just new listeners. Continue to get out and listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're interested in watching, Hunter's been doing a great job with all of our slideshows, good graphics on YouTube. So go and check us out on there. Talked about it early in the pod. We're getting the TikTok running. We're on Instagram and Twitter, obviously. So we appreciate all the traction. Still in a growing period for both of us, but me and Hunter, we both really enjoy doing this. We enjoy your feedback from all of our friends. So, yeah, we appreciate it. And that's podcast 129, episode 8.